This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. hanging out here with you. And no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, as always, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up here over the next several minutes, obviously with the injuries to Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, the trade rumors have been picking up a lot of momentum and a lot of steam around this football team. And according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Niners were interested in a lot of the top trade targets across the NFL. And he put together a list of the top 25 players who are most likely to get dealt, and the Niners are tied to a lot of those players. So the NFL trade deadline coming up after Week 9, going into Week 10, the specific date in which teams need to complete a trade by November 4th. So that's quickly approaching as we're entering the final stretch of October. The Niners bye week, by the way, it's a late one here in 2025, Week 14. So the next couple of games going into the trade deadline, San Francisco on the road against the Texans, on the road against the New York Giants. Then after that is the deadline. And Jeremy Fowler connecting the Niners to 8 of the top 25 trade targets. Now, I want to run through this list 1 through 25, and then we'll get to the players who the Niners are linked to. And we'll run through this list pretty quickly as far as those top trade candidates. Trey Hendrickson, pass rusher for the Bengals. Jaylen, Waddle, wide receiver for the Dolphins. Breece, running back for the Jets. Woolen, cornerback for the Seahawks. Jakobi, Meyers, wide receiver for the Raiders. And obviously a lot of these players are on bad teams who could look to sell going into the deadline. Tight end Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. Chris Olave, wide receiver for the Saints. Jaylen Phillips, pass rusher for the Dolphins. Alontae Taylor, cornerback for the Saints. Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher for the Jets. Logan Wilson, linebacker for Cincinnati. Michael Carter II, slot corner for the Jets. Former Niner Arden, a pass rusher for Tennessee. Roger McCreary, a cornerback also with the Titans. You got Okonkwo, the tight end for Tennessee. Arnold Ebiketie, edge rusher for Atlanta. Braxton Jones, offensive tackle for the Bears. Kingsley Enagbare, edge rusher for the Green Bay Packers. Russell Wilson, quarterback for the Giants. Cam Taylor-Britt, cornerback for the Bengals. Kirk Cousins, the number 2 quarterback behind Michael Penix for Atlanta. Kyle Duggar, safety for the Patriots. Jerome Ford, running back for the Browns. Christian Harris, linebacker for Houston. And Evan Neal, the offensive tackle and guard for the New York Giants. The Giants over the last couple of years have used him at tackle and at guard. And so you think about the Niners' top needs right now. Obviously, the pass rush is a bigger need for me as compared to a linebacker, even though Fred Warner is the more valuable player to Nick Bosa because pass rushers are harder to replace than linebackers. And if you can generate pressure on the quarterback, what does it do? It helps out your linebacking core. I'm going to put linebacker on the screen as another need for San Francisco, although I really like the collection of young players that the Niners have there. Offensive line, especially along the interior. Wide receiver because of all of the injuries there. And then cornerback, I think, is a need for the Niners too because of a lack of depth. Now, John Lynch on Thursday did say this about the Niners making a move. We don't have to because we have plenty in this building. We'll hold down the fort until Bryce Huff's hamstring is okay. If it can help our team by making a trade, we won't hesitate to do it. But nothing has presented itself that aligns completely to this point. Look, it's as simple as this for me. If the 49ers keep winning and they're 5-2 right now going into Week 8, you got to make a move. Because the Niners have an opportunity to do something pretty special this year, and I think that they can go head-to-head with pretty much any team across the NFC. And you look at how competitive the NFC is this year. It's so much better and deeper as compared to the AFC. I think there are 2 really good teams in the AFC right now. The Chiefs and the Colts. I'm not putting the Buffalo Bills there. Obviously, Josh Allen is an alien, but on defense, they stink. But in the NFC, look at how closely contested everything is. The number 1 seed, Green Bay Packers, 4-1-1. They have less wins than the Niners, Eagles, Bucks, Lions, Seahawks, and Rams, all at 5-2. But because of their tie, they had the better winning percentage and 1 fewer loss. And so they're the number 1 seed. And then you have the Bears at 4-2, the Panthers at 4-3, and the Cowboys at 3-1. only 7 teams make the playoffs. And so for those final final 3 now, wild card spots, it's going to be highly competitive toward the end of the year, and the Niners are going to be in the mix, which is why I think it makes a lot of sense for San Francisco to make a move to separate themselves from these other teams and make them more bona fide serious contenders. As for the players who the Niners have been linked to, according to ESPN, Trey Hendrickson, Chris Olave, Jaylen Phillips, Logan Wilson, Arden Key, Kingsley Enagbare, and Christian Harris. Those are 8 of the top 25, so nearly a third of the players listed by ESPN as players who could get moved, the Niners are being linked to. And so coming up next, just around the corner, we're going to talk about those players, how they could fit with the Niners, and what Jeremy Fowler had to say about those players as well. Stay tuned for that, but let's get to our sponsor, our friends at Brunt. Those of you who have been watching the show for a long time, you know that I love talking football. I absolutely love the National Football League, and being able to talk about the Niners every single day is an honor. It's a dream come true. At 5 years old, I grew up wanting to talk about the NFL. But my entire life, I've really enjoyed hard jobs like woodworking. My favorite job growing up, working maintenance at a golf course, cutting grass, turning something that was looking a little bit rough into something pretty. And so that's why it's so important for me to have work boots during these long, hard days that are comfortable and durable. That's where Brunt comes into play, and that's why I love my Marin work boots. And choosing work boots used to mean sacrificing comfort or durability. If they felt good, they didn't last. And if they lasted, they wrecked your feet. Brunt thought that was BS. So they built tough boots that feel great from day one, no break-in, no sore feet, because people out there doing the real work shouldn't have to choose between comfort or durability. You should be able to get both, and Brunt gives you both. There are also a bunch of different styles in which you can wear. Founder Eric Girard grew up blue collar. He started Brunt Workwear after his friends in the trades kept telling him, Eric, the big brands, they stopped listening. They haven't changed in 100 years. They had sold out to become fashion brands. So his buddies encouraged him to start a brand built for them, and that's why all Brunt products are named after the guys he grew up with. These are no doubt the most comfortable work boots I've ever worn, and they felt comfortable right out of the box. No long, painful break-in like all those other brands. They're just not that comfortable. These are comfortable, and they're built to perform. Whether you need waterproof, safety toe, soft toe, pull-on, lace-up, Brunt has options that can handle whatever job site that you are walking into. And so here's the deal. We work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots that don't hold up. So Brunt built something better. Boots that are comfortable and built for any job site. For a limited time, our listeners get $10 off at Brunt when you use the code CHAT at checkout. That is code CHAT at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com/chat. Use that code CHAT and you're good to go. After you make your order, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Do us a favor and tell them it was from this show. For those trade targets for the Niners here, Trey Hendrickson, obviously the biggest one linked to San Francisco. Jeremy Fowler on Hendrickson saying this, that he would be far and away the most attractive trade target if Cincinnati entertains a deal. However, a team source told ESPN, as reported on October 14th, that the Bengals have no plans to trade the former All-Pro. The interest will be there regardless, and the 49ers in particular consider Hendrickson an ideal fit. The Bengals record 3-4. The team is in the thick of the AFC North race. All the more reason to keep its best defensive player. Now, if that changes and the Bengals lose their next 2 games for a player who's on an expiring deal, maybe that will change their opinions on whether or not to trade him or not. If he's available, he's one of my top trade targets for San Francisco. Great scheme fit, and he would tremendously boost this Niners defense and this pass rush. I thought it was interesting that the Niners were tied to Chris Olave. Fowler said this about the Saints wide receiver. Rival teams caution that the Saints typically aren't dealing away players. That's not Mickey Loomis' style as GM, but the Saints have a 1-6 record. That could present opportunities to acquire future assets for a team clearly in a rebuilding phase. Olave has moved past the concussion issues, and he had 2 big play touchdowns in Week 7. He's making a case for a contract extension with New Orleans, and First-year coach Kellen Moore has an offensive background. He needs all the playmakers at his disposal. If Olave stays put, Rashid Shaheed is another Saints player who could emerge as a target for receiver-needy teams. For me personally, I wouldn't go after Chris Olave. One, he's going to be looking for a new deal. Two, the concussion issues really concern me. To start his NFL career, he's in, year 3 now? He's already had like 3 or 4 documented concussions. If there is a Saints wide receiver who I do go after, it's Rashid Shaheed, who's one of the most electrifying vertical threats in the NFL. A player who I do really like, Jaylen Phillips, pass rusher for the Dolphins. Fowler said Phillips and teammate Bradley Chubb have circulated and trade rumors. Multiple teams I spoke with believe that Phillips would hold more value than Chubb's due to upside. A string of injuries stalled his rising star status, but he's working his way back. And there's this. Coach Mike McDaniel said last week that any Dolphins trade rumors are baseless currently. Now, with Phillips, he tore his Achilles last year. He did return for the season. He's been slow to get going, but in week 7, he put some really impressive pass rush reps on tape against the Cleveland Browns and being able to get to the quarterback or at least affect the play. And he's a young player who's long, big, has great size. And again, I think he could eat as a pass rusher at defensive end in this Robert Saleh, Chris Kocurek system. Let's talk about a linebacker here, Logan Wilson. And he happens to be sponsored by Bear Performance Nutrition. Great brand. The Bengals are going younger at linebacker, relegating Wilson to a reserve role in favor of rookie Barrett Carter, despite Wilson's status as a team captain. Teams I've talked to believe Cincinnati is open to dealing Wilson, whose base salary is $5.4 million this season. Next year, he has a base of $6 million. So that's not bad coin for him as a linebacker. For a team taking on that price, it's actually pretty affordable. And I know after the Fred Warner injury that put the Niners in the mix for a linebacker, I don't think the Niners need to make a move there. Tatum Bethune is a stud. Really liked him coming out of Florida State. And I had said going into this year, if he gets an opportunity, he's a pretty solid coverage linebacker and a good linebacker against the run behind Fred Warner as a depth piece. I was very impressed with what he did against Atlanta. He might not be an insane athlete, but he's a good enough athlete, and he's really smart, really heady, plays the game with really good feel and instincts. And then I expect Nick Martin to get acclimated more over time. Jeremy Fowler on Arden Key, who was with the Niners and really resurrected his career with San Francisco after they signed him in free agency a couple of years ago. The Titans are open to trading players who are in the last year of a contract and not in the franchise's long-term plans. Key fits that mold. And if pass rush hunting teams strike out on big names, Key is a serviceable alternative. The Titans just lost rookie pass rusher Olu Oladeju for a significant time due to a fractured leg, so they might need to keep Key to offset that attrition. But obviously with Tennessee, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they could look to get value back for a player who they would lose in free agency for nothing. Now with Key, he was with the Niners in 2021. And that year, he had 6.5 sacks. That led him to getting a nice little payday from Jacksonville. He was with the Jags only for 1 year, 4.5 sacks. But then he was added to the team by Rand Carthon, who was in this Niners front office and then was the GM of Tennessee. He had 6 sacks in 2023, 6.5 in 2024, only 1.5 this year, not really playing as much. Kingsley Enikbari, he's a player with the Packers who we've talked about a couple of times here on the show. He started in 2024, but felt the squeeze of the Micah Parsons trade, getting relegated to a reserve role. While Green Bay typically likes to keep its draft and develop talent, Enikbari probably would welcome the chance to play more elsewhere in a contract year. Now, he's a young player who has shown a lot of ability, still has some upside, and I think the Niners would like him because of that. But he's in a contract year. So I don't know if the Niners want to give up too much for a player who could be a rental. Then there's linebacker Christian Harris. As we go back to the linebacker well, Fowler on Harris saying this: a once productive starter has been relegated to a reserve role in Houston's defense due in part to injuries, but he is healthy now, still 24 years old. D'Amico Ryans is a disciple of the Niners coaching staff, and San Francisco might need linebacker help after Fred Warner's season-ending injury. Texans GM Nick Caserio is among the most aggressive deal makers in the league. Howie Roseman gets a lot of buzz for being the most aggressive GM in football. Nick Caserio, kind of right behind him. They're very creative with how they manipulate and work the cap. The same thing we said that with Logan Wilson, though. I don't know if the Niners are going to make a move for a linebacker. I would put those resources toward defensive end and toward pass rusher. Now, for Harris, he would know the scheme. He's a veteran, has a lot of starts under his belt. And so over the next 2 games, if these young players struggle, if there's an injury there, maybe he could become a target that makes sense, and you could probably get him for pennies. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. We're doing it all here on the show. News, reactions, analysis, reports, rumors. We're talking all things Niners every single day. Join the party.